I'm sorry, guys. Sony just confirmed it. They're taking it away, they're canceling it. But don't panic, it's not the PS5 Pro. We're talking about the PS4. Plus, I've got 4 more mind-blowing stories that will leave you speechless. Let's dive in and uncover the truth. Did you hear about the crazy story from Twitter? This user, Console Variations, found out someone was selling a PS5 development kit on eBay, but get this, they disguised it as a PlayStation 5-themed pizza oven and called it the Pizza Station 5 Development Pizza Kit. In case you don't know, development kits are these special pre-release versions of consoles that developers use to create games. They're super controlled and not supposed to be resold. If someone gets caught selling one, the studio could get into serious trouble. So seeing one of these kits on sale is pretty wild, especially with such a clever disguise that probably tricked the automated systems from detecting it. The funniest part of the listing wasn't even the pizza theme, but the custom spatula that came with it, featuring the classic PlayStation logo. Can you imagine? This whole setup ended up selling for about $6,500. Usually, if you see a console dev kit out in the wild, it means something went wrong, like a studio got robbed or shut down. Sometimes it leads to big leaks about upcoming consoles. Remember the PS5 Pro dev kit leaks from last December? Those ended up revealing the full specs by March. This pizza station story is all over the internet now. There are even rumors that this happened as early as September 2021, but we couldn't confirm that since the original listing is long gone. It kind of makes sense though, given how long the PS5 has been out. Even if someone bought this PS5 dev kit, it probably won't work for long. These kits are tightly controlled and usually have to connect to Sony's servers, which will likely deactivate it once they realize what's going on. This whole thing is such a nostalgic trip. Remember all those fake renders and wild speculations about the PS5 before it was released? The actual PS5 we got was a lot taller and sleeker than those early designs, but this pizza station definitely brings back those memories. Can you believe it's been almost 4 years since the PS5 came out? Even though there are still about 49 million people playing on PS4, it looks like Sony is finally ready to say goodbye to it. The last game they'll release for the PS4 is going to be LEGO Horizon Adventures. It's kind of sad, right? An 11-year run coming to an end. Honestly, we saw this coming. Since God of War Ragnarok, there haven't been any major new releases for the PS4. All the big games have moved to the PS5. It makes sense, of course. The PS4 version of Lost Soul got cancelled, which pretty much signals that the transition to PS5 is complete. So, does this mean no more new games for PS4 and you need to upgrade now? Well, it depends. Sony definitely thinks it's time for everyone to get a PS5, but third-party developers will keep making games for the PS4 as long as it's profitable. You can still expect annual releases like FIFA or EAFC Sports, NBA 2K, and Call of Duty. These games are easy to port and always sell well. It might sting a bit for PS4 owners, but this move was overdue if Sony wants to grow their customer base. The pandemic slowed things down, but now it's time to move forward, even if it means taking some losses initially. We have so many amazing memories with the PS4, and it'll always be a beloved console. David Jaffe, the creator of God of War, said about Atreus, all-around terrible character. It seems like he's echoing some of the criticism that fans have had about the recent God of War games. Atreus was first introduced in the 2018 God of War reboot and had a major role in the 2022 sequel, God of War Ragnarok. In the first game, he was mostly a companion to Kratos, but in Ragnarok, they really ramped up his role, giving him his own sections and making him a big focus. While some players enjoyed these Atreus moments, not everyone was a fan of his gameplay and story. In a recent interview with Days Gone writer and director John Garvin, Jaffe didn't hold back. He said, "Atreus is a terrible character at a visual level and a play level. Jaffe thinks Ragnarok didn't do a good job setting Atreus up as the next God of War protagonist, which seemed to be the game's goal." Jaffe did say he liked the idea of Kratos having a son, but felt disappointed with how it was executed. He wanted Atreus to be someone players would think is cool and would want to be by the end of Ragnarok. Instead, Jaffe still finds Kratos way more compelling than his son. He also reflected on his past criticism of the newer God of War games, where he felt Kratos was made a weaker character. This view has split fans. Some think Jaffe is against character growth, but he insists that's not the case. He understands the importance of character arcs, but doesn't think every character needs to undergo a massive change. He compared Kratos Kratos to iconic heroes like Spider-Man and Superman. Despite his issues with Atreus, Jaffe isn't entirely against the newer God of War games. He has praised the 2018 reboot as an interesting blend of ideas and said he enjoyed playing it. What do you think about Jaffe's comments? Do you agree with him, or do you think Atreus was a great addition to the series? If you ask me, the only thing I agree with is his statements about making Kratos weaker than in the original prequels. But other than that, contrary to what a lot of fans think, I loved Atreus. I loved everything about Ragnarok. Everything. For me, the game is a perfect 10 out of 10 and is one of the games I always go back to when I'm feeling down or burnt out by life. There are so many life lessons in that game. Honestly, if there ever was a game that made me say, something went in my eye, is the God of War reboot series and RDR2, but that's a topic for another video. So subscribe if you don't want to miss out on that. You know, it's getting pretty tough to stay positive about the games industry these days. Sure, it's been a fantastic year for games, and the rest of the year looks promising too. But with all the job layoffs happening, it's hard not to feel a bit down. I mean, I'm not heartless about it, but what can we really do? Maybe just keep buying and playing the games, so at least they don't lose their jobs over flops. I snagged my PlayStation 5 early in 2021, and honestly, I've loved it since day one. I kicked things off with and Spider-Man Miles Morales, and then there was Astro's Playroom, which was a freebie, but turned out to be one of the best launch games I've ever played. A few months later, I got Returnal. Some folks say its graphics could have been done on the PS4, but who cares? It's one of the best games I've played in ages. A brilliant mix of third-person shooter, bullet hell, and roguelike. Then came Horizon Forbidden West. Seriously, it has the best graphics I've ever seen in a game. The gameplay might not be as top-notch, but it's still solid and definitely not a walk in the park. And all the rumors going around online on how ugly the protagonist is. Let me say this. Most of those pictures are photoshopped. Do you see Aloy's super fat face in my footage? Do you see her with a man's body? No. There are problems in the industry. There is the sweet baby ink drama going around. But when you make false statements, you lose credibility. More on this topic in another video. After that, I dove into God of War Ragnarok, which was just as epic as the last one, and the ending was so emotional. And now, I'm loving Helldivers 2, which continues to be fantastic. And that's not even counting all the great non-exclusive third-party games out there. There are other exclusives that reviewed well, but didn't really catch my interest. Final Fantasy and Stellar Blade aren't my cup of tea, but maybe I'll check them out if they go on sale. Sure, game releases have slowed down a bit, but they haven't stopped. Sony's been smart about filling the gaps with paid exclusives. I'm not trying to minimize the issues in the games industry. I don't fully understand them myself, and I bet most regular gamers don't even know what's going on. Will the PS5 go down as the best console of all time? Who knows, probably not. That's a pretty high bar. But for me, the PS5 is a fantastic successor to the PS4. I'm already excited for the next Astrobot game, and judging by how great Helldivers 2 is, and I think the PS5 Pro is going to be the cherry on the top. You know, Ghost of Tsushima isn't just about Jin Sakai's arsenal of weapons, it's really about his journey as a samurai trying to balance his traditional upbringing with the brutal realities of war. But that's where the game's sense of freedom shines. You get to choose whether to face your enemies head-on or take them out silently. This makes Jin's weapons even more valuable. If we ever get Ghost of Tsushima 2, it'd be awesome to see Jin with more weapons. The first game had a limited selection, but that fit the story. Historically, there are other weapons from that period that could add to Jin's arsenal and give players new ways to fight. While the combat in Ghost of Tsushima is great, a sequel needs to mix things up to keep it fresh. In the original game, Jin's go-to weapon is the Sakai katana. Interestingly, katanas weren't actually made until the Muromachi period, which started about 60 years after the Mongol invasion the game is set in. There are other historically accurate weapons samurai used during that time, which could give Jin new combat styles in a sequel. One logical addition would be the naginata. During the Mongol invasion, samurai used the naginata and the yumi, a type of bow, as their main weapons. The naginata is a long polearm that can stab, batter, or hook enemies, and its reach would offer a unique combat approach in the game. Another cool weapon could be the kusarigama, even though it wasn't developed until the Muromachi period. The first game already took some liberties with historical accuracy, so why not? The kusarigama is a sickle attached to a long metal chain. The wielder swings the chain to disarm or immobilize enemies, then uses the sickle to attack. It would give players a distinct and fun new way to play. So the Switch 2 is supposed to be a major upgrade, especially when it's docked, while still being super efficient in handheld mode. So there was this fan question answered by Moore's Law is Dead in a recent video. They talked about the Switch 2's power efficiency and performance, comparing it to the Steam Deck. He mentioned that the new console is designed to be more powerful than the original Switch, but still have better battery life when you're on the go. In handheld mode, it's going to run at 5 watts, without a fan, but when docked, it'll use between 15 to 30 watts and have proper cooling to handle the extra power. This makes it pretty competitive with AMD's 5nm chips, mainly because Nintendo focused a lot on power efficiency. Interestingly, Moore's Law is Dead also touched on the Switch 2's performance. They said it should run every game that the Steam Deck can, but with some differences. The cores in the Switch 2 aren't as powerful as those in the Steam Deck, so games that run at 90 FPS on the Steam Deck might only hit around 60 FPS on the Switch 2. Similarly, games that run at 60 FPS on the Steam Deck might run at 40 or 45 FPS on the Switch 2, but it'll use VRR to keep things smooth. The cool part is that the Switch 2 will probably run these games at higher resolutions and might even support ray tracing, thanks to its GPU and NVIDIA DLSS support. This might sound a bit disappointing if you were hoping for better performance than the Steam Deck, but it's still a huge step up from the original Switch. Current Switch users are definitely going to appreciate the improvements.